One of the main things that I see responsible for symptoms in children like night waking, restless sleep, night terrors, nightmares, teeth grinding, and also due to the lack of sleep, then there's emotional dysregulation during the day, increased levels of meltdowns, is actually intestinal worm infection. So that is things like threadworms and pinworms. Now, sadly, all routine testing that can be done to identify intestinal worms is actually highly inaccurate. Even if you go to your doctor, give them a poo sample, there's a high rate of false negative in that type of testing. The best way to test to see if your child has intestinal worms is actually called the sticky tape test, where you get a piece of sticky tape in the morning and you just kind of stick it along their bottom, your child's bottom, to see if there are any eggs that have been laid overnight by the adult worms. So these eggs just look like small sesame seeds stuck to the sticky tape. So if you do that for about 3 to 6 consecutive nights, and on one of those nights, or you see or don't see the eggs, that is actually more diagnostic than sending a stool sample into your GP. Now, treating intestinal worms can be a little bit tricky because the reinfection rate is really, really high. So laid eggs can actually live off the body for up to 2 weeks. So what that means is that you need to completely clean your house after you worm your kids, change the sheets, change the towels, wash their knickers, do the whole kit and caboodle, dry, wet, dust everything and clean everything thoroughly to capture any stray eggs, because those eggs, if they are put back into, touched underneath fingernails and then put into a child's mouth, that's going to start the whole cycle of infection all over again. That's why it's very, very hard to break the cycle of infection, because kids at school, notoriously are going to be scratching their bottom and picking their nose and touching the toys and sharing their eggs with the rest of the classroom. So even if you're doing the right thing with your child, there might be another child that parents don't realize they have an intestinal worm infection, reinfecting the entire class. So this makes it very, very difficult to break the cycle for many people. But the best treatment if the worms are in the intestines is just to take the chocolate squares. So you can actually take mebendazole or pyrantel or both, if it is a chronic infection, to treat the worm infection. And it's really important the entire family gets treated and you retreat in 2 weeks' time to capture any immature worms that have hatched, because the treatment doesn't actually get into the unhatched eggs. The other tip that I give to my clients for breaking the infection cycle is to shower every morning, because the adult worms come out, lay their eggs at night around the anus, and those eggs are not glued onto the skin. So they're not like nits where the egg gets glued onto the hair. They're just freely laid around the anus. So if you shower your child every morning, the water will wash the eggs down the drain, and it will prevent the amount of eggs around in the environment for reinfection. If you are stuck in a chronic cycle of worms, you just shower your child every single morning, and that's the only one of the ways that you can actually reduce reinfection rate. All right, they are my tips for now, and I'll speak to you more about this soon.